and said that India was arising not to serve her own material interests, to achieve expansion, greatness, power and prosperity, though these she must not neglect, and certainly not like the others, to acquire domination of other peoples, but to live also for God and world as a helper and leader of the human race. India will become a helper and leader of the human race, said Aurobindo on August 14th. Now these were the two. Now Jawaharlal Nehru, two or three interesting things. This man started this non-alignment, stage of infancy, and then he goes to America. Nehru's visit to America was important for two reasons. The first visit of first Prime Minister, and Nehru jokingly said on the occasion, it was such a disaster. You know, the American Secretary of State, Dean Acheson, very angrily said, as a schoolboy, I always wondered how the Indians could stand looking at the globe because they are at the bottom, whether they would be standing on their legs or on their heads. After meeting Mr. Nehru, I am convinced that they would be standing on, etc., he said. He was so arrogant, Acheson. He used schoolboy metaphor, school classroom metaphor to denigrate India and India's Prime Minister. So when Prime Minister Nehru goes there, Nehru seized the opportunity. He addressed the Congress and the Columbia University, where two lines are very, very important for us. What Nehru said in 1948 when Cold War was brewing very ominously for the world, and Nehru very proudly, very arrogantly, he said, India's foreign policy aims at a new world. Look at this man, which will be free from want, ignorance and disease. India just then woke up to freedom. A country that has just awakened to freedom, talking about elimination of want, disease, poverty, etc., etc. The Americans were flabbergasted. We shall be neutral, not between right and wrong, but between hatred and fear. We shall not align ourselves with either of these two blocs. Remember 1948, Stalin and America, Truman and Stalin were literally daggers drawn at each other. At the height of it, he said, India would work for, he says, Columbia University, maintenance of freedom, both national and individual, the elimination of want, disease and ignorance which afflict the greater part of world's population. Indian Prime Minister talking, and you know what the Washington Post wrote angrily? India, don't be preachy. Don't be preachy. Maaku morals cheppaddu. Don't be preachy. Washington Post. Now this was, and Nehru says, India cannot and shall not be neutral where freedom is threatened and justice denied. What beautiful English. And some Americans were so overwhelmed by Nehru's eloquence and oratory. They said, this man, you know, American intellectuals like most Thomas Jefferson. And they said, this man is like Jefferson. His intellectual power is such that he is what Jefferson is to us, Nehru is to India. Anyway, this was over. One more thing, Jawaharlal Nehru in 1947, look at India did not become free. In March, he summoned Asian Relations Conference. About 26 nations came from all over Asia. He was the chairman. What is this Asian solidarity to the Western world? Nehru was strongly opposed to the West, there's no doubt about it. Probably because of his hatred for the West, he became biased towards Soviet Union. That's a different thing altogether. He was definitely inclined towards the Soviet Union. Ideologically, he was leaning towards the left for a variety of reasons. Most importantly, he was anti-colonial, anti-racial and anti-imperial in his outlook. These were the things happening. Now, this is one phase of it. Now we shall come to the final part of my presentation, the constitution making, the Constituent Assembly. Ladies and gentlemen, the Constituent Assembly was our Gopal Swami Garu, former registrar, a wonderful professor of law, jocularly used to say 300 men and 3 women, punning on 3. 300 men and 3 women sat for 3 years and produced a constitution containing 395 articles, he used to say. Now, actually, they sat for more than almost 3 years. There were more than 300 men. There were more than 3 women. But Gopal Swami was punning. He was a master orator. He was punning on it. And Gopal Swami said like, now, this constitution drafting, Granville Austin, I think is still alive, if I'm not mistaken. He's in his 80s. A wonderful man, Austin. If I'm not mistaken, he is living somewhere in Illinois. Austin wrote 2 marvelous books. They are considered to be the Bible of Indian Constitution. One book, The Cornerstone of a Nation, the other. And while writing about the Constituent Assembly, about 300 people met for 3 years, 2 years, 11 months and 18 days. And then what is unique about this is, please remember, America became free in 1776, Philadelphia Declaration. And the Constitution was drafted in 1787. Hamilton, Jay, Madison, Jefferson, finest minds, they went on debating, finally produced a marvelous document of just 7 articles. One of the briefest constitutions in the world. For brevity, for distilled wisdom, American Constitution is the ideal, there's no doubt about it. But they took so much time those days, with so much of expertise being available. But our Constituent Assembly contained mostly, Santanam said, there was no shade of public opinion that was not represented in the Constituent Assembly. All shades. There was ideological fusion, ideological confluence in the Constituent Assembly. There were leftists, there were rightists, and some of the interesting things. I would personally suggest, especially to teachers in universities and school children, please read when you have time the beautiful debates of the Constituent Assembly. How many interesting things were talked about and what happened. There were 12 important persons, mostly lawyers. By that time, another interesting thing was happening. Gandhiji was dead. Ambedkar rejected Gandhian philosophy almost outright. There was a clash between people inclined towards the left and people who were known to be rightists. There was also too much of borrowing. If Alladi, Ambedkar, I shall briefly mention some of the important statements made by them, especially on November 25th. If Alladi, Ambedkar, Gopal Swami Iyengar and others were in charge of committees, there were others also. One man, B.N. Rao, he went on touring almost all the countries in the world. He went to Ireland, picked up some of the important principles. That is why we borrowed so many principles from so many countries. He goes to America, meets the famous Justice Frankfurter and says, why not have the due process clause? Frankfurter said, the debate that took place in 1960s was foreseen by Frankfurter in 1948. He said, don't have the due process clause in India because litigation will be so heavy, and what is done by Parliament and the people will be vetoed by the judiciary if due process clause is there. Some of the interesting things on language they quarreled. And I would only read out a few interesting things. First of all, Rashtra Bhasha. Should it be English? Should it be Hindi? Or should it be Hindustani? And I think the strongest criticism against Hindi was made by T.T. Krishnamacharya. T.T. Krishnamacharya spoke very strongly about it. And when this Rashtra Bhasha question came, many people said at the time Urdu was strongly supported by many people in the north. Urdu is used by Muslims in writing. Hindi diction is used by Sanskrit Pandits from the Constituent Assembly speeches. These are not mine. Hindustani is the sweet mingling of the two. Who will understand me when I say Rashtra Bhasha? Rashtra Bhasha is Hindi plus Urdu is Hindustani. Smattering of Urdu, smattering of Hindustani, some other words. Ultimately it became a medley of 2 or 3 languages, and finally Hindi was accepted as the Rashtra Bhasha. And somebody talked about elections, villages. T. Prakasam, interestingly, recalled there was a quarrel about village democracy. Gandhi suggested to the people that village republics must be revived. Ambedkar was very critical of village republics. In his opinion, ancient Indian village republics were responsible for the ruination of Indian society, according to Ambedkar. So Via Media policy had to be struck. That is why chapter 3 and 4, the directive principles of state policy and fundamental rights, Austin says they are the conscience of the Constitution. If you want to look at the soul of the Constitution, go to chapter 3 and chapter 4, fundamental rights and directive principles of state policy. When Ambedkar was criticizing like this, Prakasam spoke in the Constituent Assembly. There is an inscription, 1,000-year-old inscription in Kanchipuram temple, which talked of an election held with the leaves as ballot papers and pots as ballot boxes. There is an inscription, it seems. I did not know that pots were used as ballot boxes and leaves as ballot papers. In ancient India, especially in Tamil Nadu, which Prakasam quoted. And then Raghuveera strongly supported the republican system of village government that existed in India. The fight went on and went on. Finally, directive principles of state policy provided some support for Panchayati Raj, which later came into being. That's a different thing altogether. Santanam was very unhappy about this bias towards the center. This is a point I made the other day while we were discussing Sri Krishna Committee. The Constitution originally intended that the entire federal polity must be biased towards the center. But that bias which exists in the Constitution, Article 356, etc., that bias is now being corrected by or contested by, I should not say corrected, is now being contested by coalition politics. You look at this. That is why when Granville Austin writes working the Constitution, that bias that existed in the Constitution tilt towards the center is being contested today by Mamata Banerjee, by Karunanidhi, by Jayalalitha earlier, by Nitish Kumar, and all these coalition partners today, whether it is NDA or UPA, they are challenging the power of the center. Santanam very angrily said the Constitution makes the provinces beggars at the door of the center. About finances. What happened about financial devolution of powers, etc., we know, we have talked about it. Anyway, the Constitution finally was drafted, and I shall come to the last part of it. You may kindly show that. This is only one, sorry for this. This is, I hope it is visible. This is the beautiful preamble. They look at the, all these are visible to us. The goals are, we the people of India have solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign democratic republic. First this was added later. And to secure to all its citizens and to promote among them all fraternity and unity of the nation. In our Constituent Assembly, this 26th day of November 1949, we hereby adopt, enact and give to ourselves this Constitution. Now, this is the preamble. And interestingly, the signatories, please, this is what I mentioned once. The first signatory is Rajendra Prasad. He signed in Hindi and also within brackets English. The second signatory is Jawaharlal Nehru. The first page, please, I am only showing the first page. The third signatory is Pattabhi Sitaramayya, Communist President. The fourth is N. Gopal Swami Iyengar. Then O.P. Ramaswamy Reddy. Then Alladi Krishna Swami Iyer. then T. Prakasham, then K. Santanam, then Durgabai, Thirumal Rao, Sanjeev Reddy, Anansay Mahenga. 15 names, at least 8 Telugu names and 2 Tamil names of Telugu origin. You find what is very interesting is very heavy South Indian bias on the first page. Don't call me chauvinistic, but this is a very interesting fact. Now, this they finally came to be, and the constitution was adopted. Thank you. You know, he says, this assembly may well congratulate itself for having accomplished Ambedkar's speech on the last day, November 25th, 1949. This assembly may well congratulate itself for having accomplished so formidable a task in so short a time. Compare it with America. He declared, and in words of enduring humility, he was also a man of great humility. He said, the credit should go, all credit is given to me often, but the credit should go equally to Alladi Krishnaswamy Iyer and B.N. Rao. So when you say the architect of the constitution, that is what Professor B.S. Murthy pointed out once. You cannot say he is the architect, he is one of the architects of the constitution. Ambedkar, as a chairman of the drafting committee, played a very important role because he himself said, our constitution must be, look at the words of Ambedkar, the center must be strong, more strong than the center designed in 1935 Act. 1935 Act, a strong center was designed. It must be more strong than the 1935 Act, and a strong center was supported by Ambedkar. And he said, on 26th January, that is tomorrow, I am quoting Ambedkar again, India will be an independent country. What would happen to her independence? Will she maintain her independence or will she lose it again? This is the first thought that comes to my mind. It is not that India was never an independent country. The point is that she once lost the independence she had. Will she lose it a second time? It is this thought which makes me the most anxious for the future. This is this thought. Ambedkar was talking about this on the eve of 26th of January 1950. I am repeating these words on the eve of 26th of January 2011. And he says, we must be determined, look at the strong words of Ambedkar, we must be determined to defend our independence with the last drop of our blood. With the last drop of our blood. These were the words by Ambedkar. 2 last words, in 5 minutes I shall sign off. Some of these debates were beautiful debates, very inspiring debates. Radhakrishnan, 3 quotations of Radhakrishnan because the youngsters are there. 2 quotations I always recall. One quotation is, I told you when Kennedy extended a warm welcome, when rain played the spoil sport, when the arrangements went awry, Radhakrishnan Kennedy was very disappointed. Mr. President, we made wonderful arrangements for a revival. Rain came and spoiled it. I am very disappointed. And Radhakrishnan said, Mr. President, we cannot change the course of events, but we can change your attitude to them. This is a wonderful quote that Kennedy noted. The second quotation of Radhakrishnan I liked. This is especially about the younger generation. Today we say, oh, the younger generation, they are going very fast. Well, how to stop? Radhakrishnan said, wise policy consists not in opposing social revolution or any revolution, but in making use of it and in being useful to it. This is another wonderful adapt. Simple words, adjust to reality. The third quotation in the Constituent Assembly, a fight was taking place. This or that. There were 2 groups in the Constituent Assembly. This or that. Radhakrishnan, a brilliant speech. The speeches of Sarojini Naidu, Radhakrishnan, Sarojini Naidu's speeches were sheer music. As sweet as Bhimsen Joshi's music, which is being played today on television. Sarojini Naidu's speeches were sheer, unadulterated music of the highest order. Beautiful speeches about the flag, about the color, etc., etc. Radhakrishnan said, look at the intelligence of the man, the sharpness. Why this or that? Why don't you try to have both this and that? Isn't it? This was a beautiful word which means ultimately, what does it mean? Austin says, this is the spirit of reconciliation that made India's politics something very different. All of you know very well, our democracy in 1997, 50 years when India completed independence, National Geographic sent an editorial team. చాలా పెద్ద పెద్ద వాళ్ళందరూ వచ్చారు. One of them said, India, this country maddens and gladdens our heart. Maddens and gladdens. Octavio Paz said it is a living museum. It's a museum. It's a living museum. Thank God he didn't call it a zoo. He called it a living museum. It maddens and gladdens this great land of paradoxes. And please remember, Liphart, there is a professor in Columbia University, political scientist, who called India a consociational democracy. One political scientist called it consolidated democracy. Consociational democracy means in the midst of several colliding streams, colliding thoughts, different identities, you produce some order. There is a coalition government. So much of corruption, so much of noise, so much of anarchy, still there is a government. Unlike in Pakistan, unlike in Burma, unlike in other countries. This is the beauty. The second important principle that Indian constitution gave to the world, according to Austin, is the principle of consensus. Ladies and gentlemen, dissent is essential for democracy. Consensus is the essence of democracy. Some kind of consensus. Consensus should be built. General agreement. General agreement means some sacrifice will be made. An excellent example is given by a political scientist who wrote on two successions. He said, that Canadian professor who wrote two successions, India gave to the world a beautiful democratic exercise, consensus. One party, Labour Party, used to elect the Prime Minister, Conservative Party used to select the Prime Minister. India made a combination of election and selection, called it consensus. Kamaraj Nadar took Indira Gandhi, and to Morarji Desai, who was saying, I want to contest, Indira Gandhi. Kamaraj did not know Hindi, would not speak English. Therefore he said, I want to contest, Indira Gandhi. So you don't want me to contest? Indira Gandhi. What should I do? Indira Gandhi. 3 words. She became the Prime Minister. And he called it consensus. This is what Michael Brescher describes very beautifully in his book, Two Successions. This is what is consensus. Consensus is not infliction, is not imposition, but try to persuade people. Attlee, the great British Prime Minister, was more effective than Churchill. Somebody said, if Churchill were the Prime Minister, India would not have got independence in 1947. Another historian very humorously said, in 1947 August, it is not India that got independence from Britain, it was Britain that got independence from India. Because ultimately we got rid of it, we got rid of India. So this was the kind of thing that happened. So this consensus principle was given to the world by India. These are the things. So ladies and gentlemen, I shall close, thank you very much for your patience, with a beautiful line from that outstanding authority, no Indian. If Ambedkar, Alladi, B.N. Rao and others prepared a beautiful constitution worthy of intense study and admiration, grateful admiration by all of us, Granville Austin deserves the gratitude. If only Austin were called to India and given a Padma Vibhushan, I would have felt most immensely gratified. Granville Austin. And you know what he said? What a beautiful line he says. I shall close this with. The future of India, equipped with basic qualifications, attitudes, and experience for creating and working a democratic constitutions, Indians did not default their tryst with destiny. Their tryst with destiny. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. At least we could have learned the essence of 30 books and 300 people through maybe more than 300 quotations. Sir, thanks for two things. One, for the excellent lecture, and number two, for proving me right. Sir, this is Vision 2020 Challenges. I just want one small announcement. I utilize this opportunity as I am the scientist from NSTL. Tomorrow in the Republic Day parade, NSTL Tableau will be proudly participating as one of the tableaus of 5 DRDO contingent, and it is exclusively the naval systems developed at naval weapon systems developed at NSTL. So Vizag, as Vizagites, you will all be proud to see and encourage us. Thank you very much.